Can Republicans and Democrats work together in America? I know what you're thinking. Hell no. But it turns out, a little bit of hell yes in West Virginia of all places. Now you're thinking, wait, what kind of Democrats and Republicans are they? Well, let's find out, okay? So Joe Solomon's a Democrat. He's running for West Virginia City Council. He's also co-director of SOAR West Virginia, that's Solutions-Oriented Addiction Response. And Dr. Frank Annie is a Republican council candidate for Ward 13. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks, sir.
So, Joe, let me start with you. You guys are part of a bipartisan group. What is that group, and how in the world do you guys get to get along?
Yeah, we not only have Dr. Frank Annie, a Republican, we have a bunch of independents and a bunch of Democrats. We're a 9-candidate cross-partisan slate that's running for city council seats in Charleston, West Virginia. And we get along because the pain's gotten too great in Charleston, West Virginia. We've become the overdose capital since 2018 and the home to the most concerning HIV outbreak, according to the CDC. That's what they told us last year. So the pain's just gotten too great. And so we've banded together to try to get at that pain.
Okay, so I'm obviously very curious about what it means to band together. So let me go to Frank here. Frank, you're a Republican, but yet you're canvassing with Joe. So tell me what your vision for the Republican Party is that lines up with anything on the other side.
Well, I describe myself as a liberal Republican. I think that we need to have solutions, and as Joe said, the pain here has gotten too great. And ironically, when we go and canvass, I encounter a lot of Republicans that love the bipartisanship. They're tired of the name calling. They're tired of the nonsense. And I hope to inspire a part of the Republican Party, the 20% that are like-minded, that are really wanting to have effective change, have solutions to problems, instead of just the same old culture war stuff that really doesn't serve anybody and hurts local, county, and states. I mean,
yeah. So Frank, when you guys say the pain has gotten too much, I'm curious what you think the pain is. Like, what is the pain, and more importantly, who's causing it? Because I think that that's a huge issue where Americans diverge, and then you guys have converged. So I'm trying to figure it out as to how you're thinking about it.
Well, I work in a hospital. I'm an academic by training. I primarily got my start doing cardiovascular research, seeing this day in and day out in a hospital setting, seeing the overdoses, seeing us putting artificial heart valves in 25 and 30-year-olds, and seeing the CDC come into Charleston, seeing them have policy recommendations to have effective harm reduction, and seeing our local leaders simply ignore them. And that report was printed a year ago, and we've launched nothing. We are still at a crisis level for HIV, for hepatitis C, for hepatitis A, for infective enteritis, for bacteremia. And this is extended into an economic loss that's estimated at $1.7 billion per year by a report from the West Virginia Budget Policy. In 2019, I mean, the pain has gotten to a point that is economic, it is moral, and to be blunt, it is a collective scar across all of our souls. I mean, it's something that when I met Joe about 2 years ago, and then he sent a call out to run, it's the only move I had left. I mean, it was a obligation to try and do some good or raise some public awareness for public health here.
So Joe, who's causing the pain?
I think the elites of our city. When I had a house party recently, a grassroots house party, and a neighbor who'd worked in City Hall for 20, 30 years said, I once asked a city councilor, what is that they do? And the city councilor answered, we take care of business. Mm-hmm. We take care of business. Our city council is largely chock full of lawyers, lobbyists, and landlords. And we're running as public health champions, as teachers, as social workers, as public defenders. I think our city has gotten to this mountain, this peak of pain because we've been taking care of business. We've been driving the kinds of policies and sometimes just driving sheer apathy so that the people that are comfortable can stay comfortable and the people that are closest to the bottom, closest to the cliff can sometimes get pushed over.
Frank, is that right? Is it the corruption that's the main issue?
I would say so. I would agree with everything that Joe just said. I mean, we cannot have a even meaningful conversation about public health in Charleston. It is the services, city council seems to be servicing either developers or they have simply just ignored this issue completely. I don't know how any other way to put it. They have. I mean, I try to understand the logic behind their decisions about how the CDC can have a report, how local hospitals and institutions can say, we're hurting right now. You're causing $200,000 a week of pain through our institution, but yet it falls on deaf ears.
So I have begun to understand what brings you guys together. And so West Virginia can't wait's got Democrats, Republicans, Independents, right? But there's got to be a difference, right? So Frank, look, part of what makes you a Republican is that you don't like corruption. And to be fair to Republican voters, and I'm not known for being fair to Republicans, but to be fair to Republican voters, they hate corruption, right? So okay, that makes you a Republican, not a Republican politician, but a Republican voter. But what else makes you a Republican?
Well, I think that you can. I mean, it's interesting to me that we are using big government here to block CDC recommended guidelines. You know, me and Joe had talked. We always have this theme when we go out and canvass that that Charleston City Council has set a fire in Charleston and is causing more taxpayer money to be thrown down a well with this, with all the extra services. We've expanded government here by not treating public health the way it should be. And we are causing taxpayers tons of money. We are causing unnecessary deaths. There's a moral argument. There's a economic argument there. And frankly, that's a theoretical premise of why I see this from a conservative point of view. If we really want to get back to a Republican viewpoint of this, we should accept all the CDC guidelines. We should open harm reduction. We should decrease the amount of healthcare dollars spent in the city. We should shelter the homeless. We should do all of these things to reduce government spending. But instead we're not. We're using government to expand and detract from the ability of nonprofits and other institutions to save money and save lives. So
Joe, how are you going to convince people of West Virginia to vote for a bipartisan slate in a sense? When West Virginia is a very red state, aren't they going to say, "Oh, wait a minute, I want tax cuts for the rich"? That's what I hear on cable news, that West Virginians are conservative, and so they love all the Republican policies of tax cuts for the rich and deregulation and pollution and more climate change. So how do you, if that's one, is that true? And two, how do you convince them to vote for a bipartisan slate?
Cenk, I reckon you know that that's not true. Those are some heavy stereotypes. We don't approach it from a left to right. We approach it from an up down. And when we go to the door, together, here's what happens. You have Dr. Frank Annie, on my left, and I'm on his right, and we knock on the door together, and folks answer the door, and we say, hi, I'm so and so, I'm so and so, and then we say, do you want to know what's kind of interesting here? Dr. Frank Annie's a Republican, and I'm a Democrat, and we're running together. And folks, their response, they light up. Folks who, might be watching a Netflix show, they're like, what? It's like a magic trick. It's this wild and wonderful magic trick. And then they tell us that they haven't seen a Democrat and a Republican running together for 30, 40, 50 more years, maybe never. And so there's this real appreciation for folks that have taken their analysis and found common ground that says this isn't about one party or another. This is about folks with power and those without. And this is about banding together so that the folks without power can get a fair shake. And the wild thing is that 99% of the doors we knock on, folks have been incredibly receptive to that message.
That's interesting. So Frank, let me come back to you because look, the message of it's not left versus right or Republican versus Democrat, it's top versus bottom. That's actually will resonate. It'll resonate in West Virginia. It'll resonate everywhere, most especially in West Virginia, where a lot of people have taken their abuse from the elites, et cetera, and they know it, and they have the populist streak, et cetera, in them. And then and that's why I was joking around about it. Cable news pundits pretending that West Virginians really want to stick up for the rich. I mean, it's absurd. It's absurd.
Of course.
And they say it with a straight face, right? Okay, but what happens though when Republicans go, yeah, I hear you, but you have to kiss Donald Trump's ass. And if you don't, I'm out. I don't care. I don't care about anything else. Oh, that's a lovely story about how you guys got together and you're trying to stick up for the average guy in West Virginia. I don't care. Kiss Donald Trump's ass. What happens then?
Actually, with those houses, we actually tend to have the best luck because we approach them by showing empathy and listening to them. You know, if you're a pure Trump voter, I mean, we try to have empathy and talk to them and explain our positions in a calm, rational way. And I think that's the big thing where, and I've had to explain to a few people in the Democratic Party about this, is the reason they're Trump voters is they feel lost and they felt that they had a legitimate grievance that was not listened to them, that weren't listened to. So ironically, me and Joe have encountered, I think 3 or 4 Trump households flying the flag out front. We both have landed yard signs in their front yard and they said, thank you, and shook our hands. They just want listened to. And I really think that, you know, it takes a long time. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That was probably an hour-long conversation with these individuals, but when we can deconstruct it, sit on their front porch and lay out how we see things, yeah, they disagree with us on things. They really do. But we show them that there is a way that we can work together to make their lives better, make the city better, and maybe their kids can stay around here and enjoy their parents.
Yeah, all right. So look, you nailed it, just to be clear, right? Because the right-wing voters that I've said terrible things about, and I'll stick with it to the end of time, okay? Sometimes I call them zombies. I could call them all sorts of different names. But what I also add in is, they were right about the original issue, right? The original issue is they feel like they're getting screwed by the people up top, right? And that they're being lied to, and everybody's telling them on television, oh, everything's great, everything's great. No, those are honorable gentlemen and there's no corruption. They're right about that. They're right about the actual problem. It's just then they went off the deep end and they're like, oh, okay, since that isn't true, I think it's people drinking the blood of children. You're like, what? Where did that come from? And it came from, you know, hateful propagandists who saw the pain of people and saw it as an opportunity, right? And so, Joe, last thing here, West Virginia can't wait. Has it won seats so far? Because this is not the first election cycle, or not yet.
I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but the West Virginia can't wait in just the past few years have run over 100 candidates across the state, and a fleet of them are now in the state house. And now we're running folks across municipalities across West Virginia and Charleston, the capital city. No surprise, we're acting as a kind of model for how we can run similar slates across other cities in the state, perhaps beyond. And I just think it's remarkable that it's also this political uprising in the nation's overdose capital. You know, we've been mobilized by just the tremendous amount of pain and preventable, you know, GoFundMe funerals, you know, that we're just done chipping into because it's just deadened our souls. There's just so much tragedy here, and we're running not just to become to shake that mantle, but to actually get at the pain of our city, and that means that we can, you know, when we're running for a living wage for our city, that's an overdose zero wage. When we're running to decriminalize cannabis, that's harm reduction. When we're running to invest in kids and seniors, that's also getting at the roots of our pain. When we say we need a police review board so we can have a more accountable police department, that's also getting at the pain of our city. So it's really opened a pathway where we can have much larger, more expansive conversations for shaking things up in Charleston.
All right, Joe Solomon, Democrat, Dr. Frank Annie, the Republican, they're running together in West Virginia, and they have correctly analyzed the problem, and they're trying to fix it together. And so that is a wonderful thing to see. West Virginia can't wait as a group. I can't wait for you guys to win. So thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cenk. Thanks, Young Turks.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.